And I'm now joined by the man credited with coining the term CRINKs, which again stands for China, Russia, Iran and North Korea. He's Peter van Praagh, the founding president of the Halifax Security Forum, and he joins us now from Washington, D.C. Peter, welcome to DW News. How would you describe the cooperation between these four countries? Has it become a close alliance that deserves an acronym like CRINKs?
Well, it certainly deserves an acronym. This started, Gerhard, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, when Putin found himself isolated and from the Allies and needed help from others beyond China that had guaranteed some support even prior to the invasion. And so he was looking for material support and got that from North Korea and Iran. And over the past 2.5 years, indeed, that cooperation has increased, as you're seeing in the news this week, last week, that North Korean soldiers are now being trained in Russia to go to the front in Ukraine. So this is not an alliance the way that the NATO alliance is. This is a partnership of cooperation. This is a group of 4 countries, as you said, the CRINKs. It's very important to call them what they are, the CRINKs, lump them together, that are cooperating to overthrow essentially what the Western democracies have built up over the past 75 to 80 years.
We're going to come to their common goal in a moment, but first, in this very disparate group, who needs whom most?
Well, that's an interesting question. So at this juncture, China, of course, is the biggest and most powerful of the countries. It's also it's driving a lot of what's happening. The relationship now between China and Russia is a subservient relationship. Russia is far more desperate than Mr. Putin is wanting to let on. They've lost, we don't know exactly how many Russian soldiers have been killed, but well over 100,000, some say hundreds of thousands. And so the Russians are very desperate. At this juncture as well, as you're following closely in the Middle East, despite pressure from the international community, Israel continues its battle against terrorism that is being sponsored by Iran. And so Iran is also in a desperate situation. So at this juncture, it's very important for your viewers to understand that with Mr. Zelensky's help and with Israel's steadfastness, the CRINKs are actually up against the wall, and it's going to be interesting to see China manages the next steps.
It's very interesting, but we've touched upon this earlier. What would you say is the ultimate goal of this alliance, or is it different ultimate goals?
Yeah, so it's a singular. Each has their own regional goal, of course, in East Asia, in the Middle East, and in Central Europe. But their goal fundamentally is the same, which is to bring down what has been an incredible period of peace and prosperity since the end of the Second World War, a system that is built on democracy and good governance, and a system that relies on international institutions. Now, this is a system that was built by the Allies after the end of World War II, and it's a system that Russia and China and all countries have been invited to join, but instead of wanting to join, which would include joining fully, which would include having democratic processes at home, they prefer an authoritarian type of government and style where it really is sort of the strongest survive. And so that's what they're looking at, and they're looking at destroying essentially the international system of cooperation that has been built over the past 80 years.
The rules-based system, yes. Do you see any other countries that could sooner or later join that group, and are they recruiting?
Well, they are recruiting. They are spending a lot of time in Africa. They're spending a lot of time in the hemisphere. We're watching what's going on in Venezuela. Maduro's Venezuela is a place where Russia is very active, and Iran are very active. And so, yes, they're looking to enlist folks throughout the world. Now, what's important for us to understand here in the United States and in Germany and throughout the Western world, the civilized world, which goes beyond anybody who loves peace and democracy, rule of law, is that the CRINKs can be defeated, and they can be defeated very easily, but it has to be done with solidarity. The United States is not going to do this alone. It's going to do this in partnership. Germany and the United States have to continue supporting Ukraine and pushing Russia back out of Ukraine's borders. Doing that really is the first and most important way to chip away at the CRINKs. Once that happens in this order, I think that there can be more cohesive cooperation on issues related to Iran and limiting Iran's influence in the Middle East. Israel should not be doing this all by itself. Iran poses a threat to peace and security in the Middle East and beyond. And then after that, I think that you will actually have a China that will be more willing to play by international rules if it sees that the allies are steadfast and can work together to take on Russia and Iran. And then I think actually we can start building a more constructive relationship with China moving forward. But all of these things have to happen, but we are not far. We are not far from doing it. What we need to summon now is essentially the political will amongst our leaders. And I think that's very important. There's a number of elections that are going to happen, and that's very important to signal that Western democracy is vibrant and willing to fight for what it believes in.
Well, talking about the political will, if we're looking at the elections coming up in 2 weeks in the US, do you think there will be the common goal of defeating the CRINKs will be dealt a blow if Trump wins the next elections?
Well, for the first time since World War II, there really is a very divisive choice for the American people on issues related to foreign policy. And so one candidate for president has signaled that he is not necessarily going to support efforts in Ukraine to push Russia out. And I think that would be detrimental to international security. So I do think that a lot rides on what happens next. But the United States government is made up of more than just the presidency, and there are a lot of members of the United States Congress from both parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party, who are committed to ensuring that the resolve of the United States and of the democratic community that has been firm since 1945 continues despite who's president of the United States.
Peter van Praagh there, the Halifax International Security Forum. Thank you very much for joining us today here on The Day.
My pleasure, Gerhard. Thank you.